So welcome to our early stage startup panel. And so I suppose one of the first questions is very much to do, we want to know sort of the war stories. So tell us about the challenges and some of the obstacles that you've faced. And I may start with Sheila.
I think my biggest challenge was myself. So my background had been that I was an Irish police officer 14 years, and then I worked with the UN and the EU's external action missions in places like Nigeria and Libya and Bosnia-Herzegovina. So I was very much institutionalized, even though I wouldn't have liked to think so, but I can look back now and I had that real public sector mentality, and I never saw myself in private sector, and I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. So even though I had an idea, it took me a long time to actually believe that I could enter the world of startup and make an impact. So I think from a personal thing, I think structurally at the age that I've gone into it, of course, you have loans or you have mortgages and things. So to actually be able to build a business and then be able to pay off whatever you need to. So I'd say they're my two biggest challenges, with myself being the biggest one.
And the first, Louise?
So I guess my challenge was that I wasn't from a tech background or a HR background, yet my proposition was totally around those two pieces. So how do you go about solving a global problem when you aren't from those backgrounds? But I've never seen that as a huge issue if you surround yourself with the right people. So the first port of call was really about finding those people. And that takes time and patience. And in the startup world, time is crucial. So it's kind of balancing those two pieces, that you get the right people on board, but actually you don't miss the opportunity as well. So that would be the first thing, I think.
I think the biggest challenge is managing the money side of things. Your working capital. A lot of startups go out of business because they just run out of money. They might have a fantastic idea, there might be a great market for it, but they run out of money. So going back to what I said, you need a really good financial person, and you need to manage your money extremely well. And I suppose if you're a startup where there are both husband and wife involved, there's a huge strain there that, there isn't another salary coming in, so you have to make it work. So I think that's the biggest challenge, because all the other ones can be learned and you can ask for help. But it's getting funding and getting financing is the biggest challenge, I think, for a startup.
And this is a common thing we hear is about money. Sheila and Louise, do you want to comment on sort of the financial aspect and the challenges?
Yeah, I think, and it goes back to what the first Louise says about getting yourself surrounded by people that know what's out there, because in Ireland we're actually very lucky. The local enterprise boards actually can help you look and financially support you in terms of looking at feasible options. Okay, you still have to come up with a certain amount of cash and they'll match it. But that gave us a real kind of entry point into actually having the financial backing to be able to take that risk on yourself. And then other accelerator programs that are out there as well. So I just started the Propeller Shannon Accelerator, and that also comes with a little bit of investment. But as I say, if you're not around these communities, the Ryan Academy really not only allowed me to believe in myself, but also to actually ensure that I was surrounded by an ecosystem that knew startups and knew about the options that were there. And as I say, these aren't in every country, so we should be very proud of Ireland, but I would hammer it home. The Leo are the best port of call for anything simple to anything more concrete, and then they just flip you to Enterprise Ireland, so you have that journey as you progress.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Sheila. The common factor that the three of us actually have, I realised quite quickly last week, was that we were all on the Female High Flyers programme with the Ryan Academy through DCU. And Niamh Collins, who's the pioneer behind that programme, has been just so incredible and instrumental in terms of creating opportunities for us as women in I suppose, an environment where funding we have less of a chance of getting that. My experience has been that any door that closes, another opportunity opens. You just have to keep knocking and knocking and knocking. So from my funding journey to date, we have received close to €500,000 worth of funding from Enterprise Ireland through the Commercialisation Fund, which has allowed us base ourselves here in DCU, and has allowed me leverage brilliant people, brilliant minds. And that was the huge piece for me, that it wasn't just the money, it was the expertise as well, because obviously you're building a product that has to be of massive value to your customers, and also when there's a science piece involved in it, you need to make sure that you've got world experts. So, I mean, it's a year and a half now from when I reached out to Finian Buckley in DCU as a student, a mature student in DCU. And when I think of all the people and conversations I've had, and this has all been through DCU, one person introducing me to somebody else. While money is incredibly important, network and who you know and what you know and who you surround yourself with, I think is invaluable to the growth of a business. And probably more so at an early stage, because statistically 96% of startups fail. So why is that? It's down to lots of common denominators. It's funding, it's timing, it's team, and it's expertise as well. So life as a founder is multifaceted, because you're wearing I don't know how many hats at the same time. So funding is a big piece, but I think having the right people around you and the right, well, in my case, university and support system around me is fundamental to building a global company.
You've identified a very key component there, element, and that is networking. And, there is this idea that the entrepreneur is very individual and it's all a solo act, but entrepreneurship is a team sport. And tell us a little bit, because networks just don't form. You have to be proactive, and it is a skill. So tell us a little bit about how you develop those networks and how you use them to help your business. Sheila?
Well, I had come, as I say, from a policing background and then worked globally. So my network was global, and I was very proud of that. I remember in one pitch, somebody asked me how I'd reach the corporates that I wanted to reach. And I said, you give me the corporate business and I'll tell you their global head of security within a few hours. I was that confident. And I could do it. I knew I could do it with my network. But actually, you have to realize where your own network is limited to, and that technical expertise or expertise in the area that you're working, actually, I needed to know those and more. I needed to know the buyers in corporate businesses. I needed to know who actually I could sell this product to beyond the security element. And it's through these ecosystems, and especially the female high flyers and these communities that you create, like David was speaking about earlier, they are your growing network, and they really might start quite organic. I'm good with people, but I'm not great at walking into a room where I don't know somebody within the room. But actually, I soon realised that your biggest attraction to somebody else was your ability to just say, oh, hi, I'm Sheila and this is what I'm doing, because they were in the exact same boat. And once in some way you showed that vulnerability, that they were actually quick to say, you need to speak with, and then you need to speak with. And the next time I went to an event, I started saying, you need to speak with. So as I say, it grows that way, and you don't know who you get in front of. So if you kind of just open yourself to meeting people, your network grows with it. But as I say, you have to be quite tactical as well, and realise that as your business grows, your network needs to grow to complement those new areas that you're entering into.
And Sheila?
I find, I worked a lot on LinkedIn, and I found that brilliant. For example, I knew what people I was trying to target. So, for example, facility managers as one group. And so I just looked for them and I asked them to connect on LinkedIn, and I built my group of connections from there. And you can actually set up your meetings. And it's easier, I think, than picking up the phone. I think nowadays a lot of people actually respond quicker to messages on LinkedIn. and on social media than they do to kind of answering the phone. It's almost like we've moved away from that. But for example, when we went to San Francisco for 2 months in 2016, I had set up 45 really high-level meetings through LinkedIn with all of the top tech companies over there. And I mean, I'm just like little Louise from Ireland, you know, coming over and wanting to talk to them about a product that I think will be of interest to them, and they were open to that. So I was able to walk in the door and actually sit down with these people and talk to them face to face.
And Louise, have you anything?
Yeah, I agree as well with Louise about LinkedIn. I think it's really tough as a startup to begin with, because if you're not of a certain personality type and the nature to get out there and put yourself out there, but ultimately when you're starting out as a founder, all you have is yourself. So you're kind of asking yourself this question, do I really want people to know about me and what I'm doing? But ultimately you need to get out there and speak to people, because unless you start having those conversations, nobody's going to know about your product and be able to tell somebody else about it. So for me personally, I had nothing to lose because I had very little. So I just, at that stage, decided I did a lot of writing and social media content and blogging, and just talking about why I was doing what I was doing, my personal experiences around that. And I got a lot of feedback and interaction from that, which led to possible meetings and speaking with people. Also, actually, when I came across the problem, I was saying to myself, oh, you kind of naturally say, well, I'm not from a tech background, but I'm not from a HR background. But actually, when I thought about it, I had a lot of connections within HR, probably because I'd worked for nearly 20 years. So, and actually people I'd gone to college with previously. I don't know anybody who has said no to me or said, no, I won't help you. And I think probably everybody finds that if you ask somebody for help, the natural inclination is to say, yes, I can help you. And people just want to help. So I think don't be afraid to get out there and talk to people, but also don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because if you're looking at what investors or VCs are looking at, they will say, okay, there's millions of ideas out there, but ultimately it's somebody who can execute the idea. It's the founder, it's the team. So if they don't know who you are and they can't see in terms of your character or your personality, that's hugely important as well. So that's the first step, I think, as in the startup community as well, is not being afraid of who you are. And the amazing experiences, even listening to Louise and Sheila, their different backgrounds, they tell a story, but it's ultimately led them to what their product is now, you know.
Okay, so now brace yourself. This is the quickfire round. We're going to finish on this. And obviously the theme of today is getting started. So I want you to think about a mantra, slogan, a couple of words of advice that you would give to anyone in the audience today thinking of starting. So I'm going to start us off, and mine is jump and the net will appear. Sheila?
Mine is they won't come knocking on your door, get out there.
Brilliant. Louise?
I suppose be fearless, and the rules are there to be broken, and look at things in a totally different perspective.
Thank you. And Louise?
I would probably say if you build it, they will come. So go for it. Build whatever you want to build, and the business is out there. You just need to go looking for it.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our speakers and our panellists, and I hope you would all show our appreciation. Sheila, Louise, and Louise, thank you so much.